Welcome back. We're going to continue. Let me close that door. Okay, so we're going to continue where we left off in Deuteronomy. And the reason we're taking this route, no pun intended, is because our fathers traveled through the wilderness and they were being led around the wilderness as they were going back to the promised land. We know they initially went to the borders of the promised land, and because of rebellion against the Most High, they failed to get in to the promised land. And so they went back into the wilderness, and they were being led about by the cloud by day and the fire by night. And they were headed back to the wilderness, but after that whole generation died. Now, there are a couple of very key parallels to us today. For one, we are in wilderness of our enemies' lands right now, and we're being prepared to be called to our land at the return of the Messiah. Two, as we're going to see here, as we study in Deuteronomy, there is opposition. Now, ultimately, the opposition comes from Satan, but he's using people or nations to try to stop us from inheriting our land. Inheriting more than just some land, though, it's a kingdom. We're looking to inherit a kingdom. And so let's take a look again what we quoted in Acts chapter 1. Before we go back to Deuteronomy, we quoted Acts chapter 1, the question the disciples asked to Messiah before he left. Now, I'm going to start at verse 1 of Acts chapter 1, verse 1, and I'm going to go from verse 1 down to verse 7, actually from verse 1 down to verse 8. The former treaties have I made, O Theophilus, of all that Yahushua began both to do and teach, until the day in which he was taken up. After that, he, through the Holy Ghost, had given commandments unto the apostles whom he had chosen, to whom also he showed himself alive after his passion by many infallible proofs, being seen of them 40 days, and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of Yah. The kingdom of Yah. And being assembled together with them, commanded them that they should not depart from Jerusalem, but wait for the promise of the Father, which, saith he, ye have heard of me. For John truly baptized with water, but ye shall be baptized with the Holy Ghost not many days hence. When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Master, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? And he said unto them, It is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power, but ye shall receive power. After that, the Holy Ghost is come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me, both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria and unto the uttermost part of the earth. So many people call this the gospel commission. The Bible doesn't call it that. What the Bible says is that the disciples were going to receive power. The power is the Father's Spirit given to them as Messiah returned back to his Father. And with that power, they were going to be witnesses unto Messiah, therefore also witnesses of the Father to the earth. Okay, what were they bearing witness of? They were bearing witness of the Father's righteousness and of the coming kingdom of the Messiah. They were bearing witness of that, of the Father's righteousness and his power to change people and the coming kingdom of Israel. The question was, will thou at this time restore the kingdom again to Israel? Why would they say that? Because the kingdom had been Israel's kingdom under David. Since David, they really hadn't had it that way like that again. David, then Solomon. After those two, it was going back and forth. There were all kinds of trials with other nations, and there were problems. Eventually, as we know, our fathers were scattered from the land. But the kingdom was under David and then Solomon. And they were saying, will thou restore again the kingdom to Israel? And why did they ask Messiah that? Because that was the reason that Messiah was returning, as they Suppose they said, you coming here to restore. We had thought that this was been he that was going to restore Israel. Again, in Luke chapter, the last chapter, it was Luke chapter, hold on, I'll tell you. It's Luke. Luke chapter 24. Luke chapter 24. I'm going to begin at let's see. Okay, yes. I'm going to begin at verse, let's see. I'm going to start at verse 13 of Luke chapter 24 from verse 13. And I'm going to go from verse 13 down to verse 21. Luke chapter 24 from verse 13 down to verse 21. And behold, two of them went that same day to a village called Emmaus, which was from Jerusalem about 80 furlongs. And they talked together of all these things which had happened. And it came to pass that while they communed together and reasoned, Yahushua himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were holden that they should not know him. And he said unto them, what manner of communications are these that ye have one to another as ye walk and are sad? And one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answering, said unto him, art thou only a stranger in Jerusalem, and is not known the things which are come to pass there in these days? And he said unto them, what things? And they said unto him, concerning Yahushua of Nazareth, which was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before Yah and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and have crucified him. Now watch verse 21. But we trusted that it had been he which should have redeemed Israel. And beside all this, today is the third day since these things were done. So the disciples were looking for the Redeemer of the nation, the kingdom of Israel in Messiah. And the Bible does prophesy about that. But they did not understand there were two appearances. There was the first appearance, which Messiah was going to be the blood of the covenant to restore the covenant to Israel. See, first thing he had to do is restore the Israelite covenant. The second thing is to restore the kingdom. Now, the announcement or the witness of the apostles of Messiah was this restoration of the covenant to Israel. And then, of course, through the apostle Paul, the invitation to partake in that covenant to the Gentiles. Now, that was the initial, what the Bible calls the early rain. We live in the latter rain. That was the first salvo, if you will, of the message of Israel to the earth. Since then, it has been perverted, as we know. It has been perverted under the religions of man, chiefly the three so-called Abrahamic religions: Islam, Judaism, and of course, Christianity. The message of the apostles have been perverted. So that now the Most High is raising up, according to Bible prophecy, awakening of his true people to bring again the message of the kingdom of Israel, which is at hand. Okay. And now, as he had given them power in the early reign to make this announcement and this invitation, so now at the end, he raises up the 144,000 with the latter rain power to close the work, to call his people back to the kingdom. Now, what is this kingdom again? Let's just go over this very quickly. We are in Babylon, spiritual Babylon. Babylon was shaped and created by Asatan under the people called Japhet, which we call modernly Europeans. And we're going to look at that today. We're going to look at that as we go into Deuteronomy. They are Gog and Magog in the Bible. They are your Europeans from Eastern Europe. And that is prophesied that they should rule both religiously, economically, and politically in this earth on this last day. That's their time. It's their time right now. But their time is coming to an end, as Messiah said, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And that's where we're at right now with the development and raising up of the awakening of us as the true Israelite people, with us awakening to who we are, and with the outpouring of the Father's Spirit to call from Babylon, in a religious sense, his people. Okay, so there are 3 stages of leaving Babylon that the Bible talks about. The first and most important stage for us, the initial stage, is leaving the religions of Babylon. Okay, what is the religions of Babylon? It's anything that's not Father Yah's testimony directly to us from this word. Very simple. Right? It's anything that's not Father Yah's direct testimony to us from this word. What do I mean by that? Father Yah spoke to our fathers on Mount Sinai directly. He gave them a call. He gave them a covenant. Prior to that, he spoke and called Abraham away from Ur the Chaldees directly. He said to Abraham, leave your father and your mother's house. I'm going to give you a lamb and make you a great nation. He gave the same promise as an inheritance to Abraham's chosen seed, Isaac, and from Isaac to the chosen blessed one, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, and to their children forever as an inheritance. Okay, so that is the original chosen people, the original kingdom, and we are being awakened to that now. And the call is being made out of all other. The Bible says, the gods of the nations, that is everybody else, are idols. Yahweh made the heavens. And he's only showed his statutes and judgments to one people, to Jacob. He has chosen no other people on the earth. And in the last days, it shall come to pass, the Bible says, that as you were scattered into all of these nations, we're going to read this in Deuteronomy also, you're going to remember where you come from. You're going to remember who you are. You're going to return to your God. He's going to pour his spirit upon you, and a call is being made to the people out of the religions of Babylon, all of the religions of Babylon. Christianity, especially, let's look at the 3 main ones. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism are the 3 main tenets of the religions of Babylon. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. None of them are what the Bible speaks about. The Bible, see, for example, the Judaism, one of the tenets, and tell me, you Judaizers, if I'm wrong, you Ashkenazis, is that Abraham is the father of your religion. That's part of the tenets. But as I read my Bible, Abraham was not the creator of any religion. He's the follower of the God of Adam and Seth and Enoch and Lamech and Noah and Shem and Arphaxad and Eber, who became the Hebrew. That's Abraham. He didn't found any religion. He was told he would be made a nation. Also, Islam was founded by a man that said he spoke to Allah. Allah is, in Hebrew, and it's a singular form for the word God. It is. Allahim is a plural form of the word God. It's gods. Allahim. Allah is the singular form. And so, but it's not a name, it's a title. It's like saying he is the Most High, it's a title. God is also a title, right? But it's not his name. His name is Yah. And Muhammad is an Arab man, and tell me if I'm wrong, you followers of Islam. An Arab man named Muhammad said that he was spoken to by Allah, and he was given this religion that we now call Islam. Now, some of the people of Islam will try to tell you that Adam was a Muslim. Muhammad told them that. You can believe Muhammad if you want to. But that's their religion. The Bible never says anything about a Muhammad or about any bloodline from Arabs that are his chosen people. His only chosen people. He says, you only, that would be you only Hebrew Israelites. You only, singular, have I chosen. That's very plain, isn't it? And Moses said it, and Amos said it, and Ezekiel said it, and Jeremiah said it in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. Let every word be established. You only have I chosen. Okay? And Christianity is not a religion founded by the Messiah in my Bible. In my Bible, Messiah followed the religion of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that his father gave them. He didn't make up no new religion in which he says only follow the Old Testament and do away with my law. He never did that. That's Christianity using the New Testament to make themselves relevant as a religion and making claims that in the Catholic Church, Peter was the first pope, and making claims that they was Christians in the 1st century when it was Gentiles calling disciples of the Messiah Christianos. It wasn't disciples calling themselves by a Gentile name, Christianos. Christos is one of the gods, like Jesus. There's no Jesus in Hebrew. There's no Jesus. That's what they call the Messiah, Jesus. There's no Jesus. Okay, so that's Christianity. Go ahead and do that if you want to. But the word tells us the chosen ones come from a seed that is a nation. And that nation is the only chosen nation. And the final call to Babylon is for his chosen ones that are awakened to call forth with the power of the Holy Ghost, the people out of Babylon. Okay? Period. Right? For us, there is no other God. There is none. There's no 2, there's no 3, there's no Trinity. It's Father Yah. Somebody said, well, what about Jesus? He could be worshiped. He could be. But Jesus worshiped his Father. And he will tell you everything he says and does comes from his Father. And yes, Jesus, the one you call Jesus, he is who we call Yahweh Shah. He is the prophet because he's the firstborn of all Hebrew Israelite prophets. He is the high priest because he's the firstborn of all high priests, and he is the coming king. He's the firstborn of all the kings of the earth. Yes, that's who we call Yahweh Shah. And he tells us, worship your Father. That's what he taught us. He said the Father himself loves you. Worship your Father. He said to me, he taught us in his word, he said, when you pray, go to your closet. And when you have shut your door, he said, pray to your Father who's in secret. And he said, your Father that seeth in secret will reward you openly. That's what the Messiah taught us. That's what he taught us to do. That's how he taught us to pray. And then his disciples said, well, how do we pray? And the disciples asked him, show us how to pray. And he said, this is how you start off your prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's how he taught us. So that the focus that Messiah taught us is on our Father. Messiah is the blood of the covenant. Without Messiah, we get no cleansing from our sin. We understand that. And we give honor and glory to Messiah and to the Father who sent him. This is the message. We only have one God. His name is not Allah. His name is Yah, for Yahweh. Yah exists. Ahaya, I exist. Yahweh, Yah exists. And his son is similar. Yahweh, Shai, Yah exists to save. Yahweh is also Emmanuel, Yah is with us. Also, Yashar Al, right with the Most High. That's our God. That's who we serve. That's how we awakening. That's our call. And that's why I say, brethren, it's not for us to win by argument, anyone. If you believe in the one true God, Yah, and you believe you are awakening from him, therefore it is of his power to bring you to himself, is it not? It's of his power to bring others to himself, is it not? We are just simply servants, messengers, conduits, blessed to be used by our Father. To be called his servant is a blessing. And to be used by him to call others, the power is in his word, it's not in us. It's of his word. He puts that power from us on the word and causes people that are his to hear the call. It's not us that brings anybody. It's not us that converts anybody. It's the Father's Spirit. No man can come to the Messiah, said the Messiah, Yahweh Shah, except my Father draw him. Praise the Most High. So I told you about how the journeys of our fathers in the wilderness are parallel to ours in two major ways. First, again, we talked about how there were peoples at that time that were rebelling against our fathers. Our fathers, the people, were people that were rebelling against Heavenly Father Yah, would not believe, was rebellious, was stiff-necked. And he said, I'm going to let y'all die in the wilderness and I'm going to let your children go in. And that journey is what's represented our journey today as we are in the land of our captivities right now. And we're being developed and trained to be going into the kingdom. That's what the preparation was. The journeying in the wilderness was the preparation for our father's children to get into the kingdom. Okay? To go into the land. The promised land was the kingdom. Secondly, there were going to be enemies rose up against our fathers to stop them from taking the kingdom. And there's enemies today, going to rise up against us to try to stop us from taking the kingdom. And those enemies are outlined. Let's take a look. As we are being given the kingdom, the enemies of Yah's chosen are going to be against us, period, end of story. And they're doing it because they don't want us to get the kingdom, because their God, Satan, has told them that they should have the kingdom. And the world that we're in now of Babylon is his kingdom. He is the prince of this world, the prince of a world where you have child rape and molestation, the prince of a world where you have government corruption, the prince of a world where they have pollution and they're destroying the environment, where everything is for a dollar bill. That's the prince of this world, of Babylon, the prince of a confusing religious system in which everybody has different views of what they're claiming to be the same God. That's a world system of Babylon. That's our Satan system. And he's telling his people they should keep the kingdom. But our God, Yahweh, is saying to us, he's going to restore again the kingdom to Israel. And now let's take a look at the opposition. This is just going to touch base slightly on all of the opposition that started in Revelation, where we're 19, where we were earlier, Revelation chapter 19. And we're going to see this in Deuteronomy chapter 2. Revelation chapter 19 starts where you're going to see where this opposition comes. Revelation 19, beginning at verse 11 and going from verse 11, let's see, down to verse 19. Revelation 19, 11 to 19. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yah. And the armies which are in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. and out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress in fierceness and wrath of Al Shaddai. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, Come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great Most High, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. That's the opposition. Okay? Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20, verse 7, 8, and 9. Revelation chapter 20, verse 7, 8, and 9. Just a quick synopsis of the opposition. And when the 1,000 years are expired, our Satan shall be loosed out of his system, out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up in the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. And fire came down from Yah out of heaven, and devoured them. This is the opposition. Compass the whole earth. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 39. Ezekiel chapter 39. Ezekiel 39. Going to begin at verse 1. And we'll go down to verse 7. Ezekiel 39, 1 through 7. The opposition. Therefore, thou son of man, prophesy against Gog, and say, Thus saith the Most High Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and leave but the sixth part of thee, and will cause thee to come up from the north parts, and will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel. And I will smite thy bow out of thy left hand, and cause thy arrows to fall out of thy right hand. And thou shalt fall upon the mountains of Israel, thou and all thy bands, and that people that is with thee. I will give thee unto the ravenous birds of every sort, and unto the beasts of the field to be devoured. Thou shalt fall upon the open field, for I have spoken it, saith the Most High Yahweh. And I will send fire on Magog among them that dwell carelessly in the isles. They shall know that I am Yahweh. So will I make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel. And I will not let them pollute my holy name anymore. And the heathen shall know that I am Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel. Chapter 38. Ezekiel 38 from verse 1 down to verse 8. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And say, Thus saith the Most High Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and will bring thee forth, and all thy army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with the shield and helmet, Gomer and all his bands, in the house of Togarmah, in the north quarters, all of his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the last days thou shalt come upon the land that is brought back from the sword, and gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and shall dwell safely, all of them. That's the opposition. Now let's turn to Deuteronomy chapter 2. Before we go, hang on one second. Be right back. Sorry about that. That'll have to be edited out. I had to use the bathroom. All right. Deuteronomy chapter 2. Deuteronomy chapter 2. So we ended up in verse 9. We ended up in verse 9 where the Most High was telling Israel, don't meddle with the Moabites because I've given that land unto Lot for possession. And he says the same thing, of course, about Ammon as we're getting ready to see. And then we're going to see the opposition. So let's start at Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 9. Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 9. I'm going to read from verse 9 down to verse 19. Deuteronomy chapter 2, from verse 9 to 19. Notice also the mention of the giants that were in the land at that time. So let's take a look in Deuteronomy chapter 2, from verse 9 to 19. And Yahweh said unto me, distress not the Moabites, neither contend with them in battle, for I will not give thee of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for a possession. Now look at this. The Emims dwelt there in times past, a people great and many and tall as the Anakim, which also were accounted giants as the Anakim. But the Moabites called them Emims, and the Orims also dwelt in Seir before time, but the children of Esau succeeded them when they had destroyed them from before them and dwelt in their stead, as Israel did unto the land of his possession, which Yahweh gave unto them. Now wait. So look at this now. So there were giants in the land. And I'm not talking about the so-called giants that people claim angels had with women from Genesis chapter 6. I don't believe the Bible is telling us about that, about angels having sex with women and producing children. But it does say there were giants, like large people in the land there where Esau was given, where Moab was given, and where Ammon was given. And of course, where Israel was given. There were Emims, there were Anakims, right? It talked about them. It said the Emims, Anakims, and also there were Orims and others that dwelt there. In the other one, you're going to see Zamzumims. All of these people were giants, right? And each of the blessed children beat them and took their land. So here it's telling us that Moab dwelt in a place where there's these giants called Emims, and they took their land. They took their land. Esau dwelt in a place where these giants were and took their land. And Ammon dwelt in a place where these giants were and took their land. So there was basically three different sets of peoples, which the Bible calls giants, that dwelt in that land. And each of them was overcome because of the promise of the Father to Lot, to Abraham, and of course to Israel. The Israelite ones that's who Caleb took, the Anakim. That was the hill that became Jerusalem. That's where Caleb took the land. That's where the Anakim were, and that's where they was afraid of. You remember they said we were like grasshoppers. They were real big. We were grasshoppers to them. You can't fight against them. And Caleb said, they are bread for us. And Caleb said, don't say that, they are bread for us. We could beat them because the Most High is with us. So it was like the Most High was showing them his blessing is what's causing them to inherit that land. It wasn't their strength and their might. It was his blessing that was calling them to inherit that land. Okay, so let's take a look at that. This is Deuteronomy chapter 2. All right, we just finished that. I'm going to start at verse 12. The Horim also dwelt in Seir before time, but the children of Esau succeeded them, and they had destroyed them from before them and dwelt in their stead. And as Israel did unto the land of his possession, which Yahweh gave unto him. Now rise up, said I, and get you over the brook Zered. And we went over the brook Zered, and the space in which we came from Kadesh Barnea until we were come over the brook Zered was 38 years. They were 38 years in the wilderness there. Until all the generation of men of war were wasted out from among the host, as Yahweh sware unto them. For indeed, the hand of Yahweh was against them to destroy them from among the host until they were consumed. And it came to pass when all the men of war were consumed and dead from among the people, that Yahweh spake unto me, saying, Thou art to pass over through Ar, the coast of Moab, this day. And when thou comest high over against the children of Ammon, distress them not, nor meddle with them, for I have not given thee the land of the children of Ammon any possession, because I have given it unto the children of Lot for possession. The Most High is so faithful. And again, that's another point. He makes promises forever. People may forget. We forget the promises of the Most High. But he never forgets what he has promised. And he will always, 100% of the time, perform what he has promised. 100% of the time. Okay? Without any reservation. He's going to do that. And so he said, I've given this to the children of Lot for possession. Okay. Verse 20. Let's read from verse 20 down to verse, I'm going to read from verse 20 down to verse 23. That also was accounted, watch this, that also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time. And the Ammonites called them Zamzummim, a people great and many and tall as the Anakim. But Yahweh destroyed them before them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead. See? So there were three sets of giants to the children of Lot and Esau. There was Esau, Lot, and Moab taking land that were giants. And then, of course, a fourth set were in the land of Canaan when our fathers came and took that land. There were giants, and they said great and tall. They were big, tall, strong people, and they were overcome by the blessing upon the people Yahweh promised that land to. Okay, let's continue. Verse 22. As he did to the children of Esau, which dwelt in Seir, when he destroyed the Orims from before them, and they succeeded them, and dwelt in their stead unto this day. And the Awims, which dwelt in Hazarim, even unto Azah, and Caphtorim, which came out from Caphtor, destroyed them, and dwelt in their stead. Rise up, take your journey, and pass over the river Arnon. Behold, I have given unto thine hand Sihon the Amorite, and king of Heshbon, and his land. Begin to possess it and contend with him in battle. See? So again, why? Let's remind ourselves. Why were these people losing their land? Why were this geographic area promised to the people that were Abraham's relatives and children? Why was this land taken from these giants? Why was it taken from the Caphtorim? Why was these lands taken from the Anakim and the Orim? That's right, because of the sins that they had committed. And it goes back to the prophecy of Noah. Canaan shall be their servant, right? Canaan shall be their servant. Noah said, cursed be Canaan. And so all of Canaan's land, which are all these lands, was given to people chosen by the Father. Okay, Canaan's land. Now, it's this, when I say it, the word of the Most High specifically lists some of the activities of Canaan before they were dispossessed of these giants. These were the giants. And let's look at the activities that they took part in as to why they were taken off the land. There's a reason. The Most High didn't say, I just don't like your face, I'm taking you off the land. There's a reason they were taken off the land. And you remember what the promise to Abraham included was this statement. He said, the iniquity of the Amorites was not yet full. What does that mean? It means they were filling their cup of sin until the Father would get to a point and say, okay, it's time. I'm going to take this land from you. The iniquity of the Amorites was not yet full. He said, you're going to be strangers in a land that's not yours for 400 years. For the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full, right? And so it got to a point where they were doing certain practices and they were warned and they were continuing in these practices until the point where the Father says, too late, I'm giving your land to my chosen ones. Leviticus chapter 18. Whenever anybody asks you about this, Leviticus 18 is the answer, because it outlines, aside from Noah's prophecy, which is a witness, aside from that, it outlines the specific sins of this area of Canaan and why they were taken off this land. Okay. And before we read the abominations, I want to look at chapter 18 of Leviticus, verse 27 down to verse 30, because that tells you the end. It tells you it's the conclusion of the chapter, and it gives you the reason in a very short synopsis. So let's look at that in Leviticus chapter 18, verses 27 to 30. For these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled. That the land spew not you out also when ye defile it, as it spewed out the nations that were before you. For whosoever shall commit any of these abominations, even that soul that commit them shall be cut off from among their people. Therefore shall ye keep mine ordinance, that ye commit not any one of these abominable customs, which were committed before you, that ye defile not yourselves therein. I am Yahweh. Now, one other thing that's very important that we should keep in mind, which Yah is going to show us in the book of Deuteronomy. He told Moses, and through Moses, Israel, the land that you're inheriting, he said, my eyes are always on that land. He said that. He said, my eye, this is before they took it. He said, my eye is always on that land. So aside from the customs of these giants that were on the land, there's another reason. His eye is always on that land. He has chosen that land for his people. And on that land, if you remember, he told Abraham, I want you to sacrifice Isaac on one of the mountains I show you. Okay? I want you to sacrifice Isaac on one of the mountains that I show you. And Abraham took Isaac to where he was shown on a specific spot, and he was about to sacrifice him. And the Most High stopped him, as we know, right? And he had a ram in the thicket. He offered that ram instead of his son Isaac. And he told Isaac, Yah will himself provide a lamb for a burnt offering. In that same spot, David was called to bring a sacrifice, because he had counted the people, and a plague went among the people, and he was told to go to this specific same spot and do a sacrifice. And he bought the lamb from a Jebusite, and he used that spot for a sacrifice to stop the plague. And it was that same spot that Solomon built the temple later. So let's put all this together. Father said, my eye is always on that land. He told Abraham, there's a spot on there. I need you to sacrifice Isaac, and I'm going to provide my own sacrifice for that. It's the same spot he told David, I want you to sacrifice to stop the plague because of your sin from spreading among the people. It's the same spot David told Solomon, build the temple here. It's the same spot. Why would he choose that spot? What is it about that spot? And that it's the same place that New Jerusalem is coming to. The same place that New Jerusalem is going to be set down on. The same place. Why? What is it about that spot? Could it be that was the original Garden of Eden? Could it be? I'm guessing now. Because it said, all the things I just said are facts from the Bible. He said his eyes always on that land. He told Abraham, go to a specific spot, and I want you to sacrifice your son. And I'm going to provide a sacrifice for you. He told David, go to this spot, buy this land from Jebusite, and use this spot. Same spot. He told Solomon, David did, build the temple on this spot. Same spot. And his eyes always on that land. It's amazing, isn't it? It's true, though. So let's look at some of these sins. This is why he was kicking Anakim, Ordim, Zamzumim. This is the giants. That's why he was kicking them off the land. This right here. Leviticus chapter 18, beginning at verse 1. And reading down, we don't need to read all of it. I'm going to read from verse 1. And remember what we read at the end. It said, for these customs the men of the land have done, and they've defiled the land. Okay, so let's read some of them. From verse 18, I'm going to read down to verse 7. I'm sorry, from verse 1, Leviticus 18, verse 1 down to verse 7. I'm going to skip down and show you some other things in here. Verse 1, and Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, I am Yahweh your most high. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwelt, shall ye not do. And after the doings of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, ye shall not do. Neither shall ye walk in their ordinances. Ye shall do my judgments, and keep mine ordinances, and walk therein. I am Yahweh your most high. Ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man do, he shall live in them. I am Yahweh. None of you shall approach any that is near kin of him to uncover their nakedness. I am Yahweh. The nakedness of thy father, or the nakedness of thy mother, thou shalt not uncover. She is thy mother, thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. Remember what it said. All of these customs have the men of the land done, and they have defiled the land. Okay? Let's see. Let's go down to verse 19 and read from verse 19 down to verse 25. Also, thou shalt not approach unto a woman to uncover her nakedness as long as she is put apart for her uncleanness. Moreover, thou shalt not lie carnally with thy neighbor's wife to defile thyself with her. And thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Moloch. Neither shalt thou profane the name of thy Most High. I am Yahweh. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is abomination. Neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself therewith. Neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie down thereto. It is confusion. Defile not yourselves in any of these things. For in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you. That is why the Anakim, the Zamzumim, the Horim, that's why all these giants were removed from the land. They were practicing these customs. And I didn't even read all of them. And as you can see, the things I just showed you are being practiced now, every day. Are they not? They're being practiced every day in hundreds of different places, all over the United States, Europe, in the world. And he said, don't defile yourselves in these customs, because the men of the land have done these customs and they have defiled the land. The Bible does tell us in Isaiah chapter 24 that the earth is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. So let's put it all together. If he has removed the giants of the land because of the sins that they have committed, and we see these sins in society today, if he has removed them because he said they have defiled the land, I'm taking it, what about the earth now? And he says in his word, the whole earth is defiled. Okay, so the system that we're now in is a defiled system. And what happened to defiled lands in the past? Well, he told us, I'm going to put my holy people in place of those people. They're going to destroy those people and take their land. Deuteronomy chapter 2. Deuteronomy chapter 2. Beginning at verse 24. See, now you got to get the whole picture. Why did he take that land? Why was Canaan's land taken? There was giants on the land, and they did abominable things. His eye is always on that land. He told David, he told Abraham, go and sacrifice your son on this mountain. Then he told David, buy the spot, that same spot from the Jebusite, and make sacrifice there. Then he told Solomon, build the temple on that same spot. My eye is always on that land. Deuteronomy chapter 2, beginning at verse 24. Rise ye up, take your journey, and pass over the river Arnon. Behold, I have given unto thy hand Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land. Begin to possess it and contend with him in battle. This day will I begin to put the dread of thee and the fear of thee upon the nations that are under the whole heaven, who shall hear report of thee and shall tremble and be in anguish because of thee. Satan is angry, and he's going to be really angry now. But because of the way the Most High is going to bless us and take care of us, the fear of us are going to be on the people. It's not because we have any guns. The fear of the Israelites was because they had swords that was different than any swords the enemies had. They just basically were fighting with sticks and swords and spears, right? That's what they were fighting with. They didn't have no guns. So it wasn't that caused their enemies to have fear. Father Yah put the fear of them in the enemy, so that when they came to Jericho, remember, the harlot said, everybody's scared of you. He said, everybody's scared of you. We heard what happened. The Spirit of the Father makes the difference, brother. The Spirit of the Father upon us is the only armor, the only weapon we need is the Spirit of the Father. There is no power available to stop his Spirit from doing whatever he declares it to do, and whoever he declares it to do it in. Okay? The Spirit of perfect righteousness is going to take over this planet Earth. The Spirit of perfect righteousness and eternal wisdom and peace is going to take over this earth. And it's going to destroy the spirit of darkness and lies. And this is an object lesson for us. This is an object lesson for us. Deuteronomy chapter 2, verse 26. And I sent messengers out of the wilderness of Kedamoth, unto Sihon, king of Heshbon, with words of peace, saying, let me pass through thy land. I will go along the highway. I will neither turn unto the right hand nor to the left. Thou shalt sell me meat for money that I may eat, and give me water for money that I may drink. Only I will pass through on my feet, as the children of Israel, of Esau, which dwelt in Seir, and Moabites, which dwelt in Ar, did unto me, until I pass over Jordan unto the land which Yahweh our Most High giveth us. But Sihon, king of Heshbon, would not let us pass by him. For Yahweh thy Most High hardened his spirit, and made his heart obstinate, that he might deliver him into thy hand, as appeareth this day. And Yahweh said unto me, behold, I have begun to give Sihon and his land before thee. Begin to possess, that thou mayest inherit this land. Then Sihon came out against us, he and all his people, to fight at Yahaz. And Yahweh our Most High delivered him before us, and we smote him and his sons and all his people. And we took all his cities at that time, and utterly destroyed the men and the women and the little ones. Of every city we left none to remain. See, the Bible speaks the straight. I mean, men, women, children, everybody that was on their side, destroyed. Only the cattle we took for a prey unto ourselves, and the spoil of the cities we took. From Arar, which is by the brink of the river Arnon, unto the city that is by the river, even unto Gilead, there was not one city too strong for us. For Yahweh our Most High delivered all unto us. Only unto the hand of the children of Ammon thou camest not, nor unto any place of the river Jabbok, unto the cities of the mountains, nor unto whatsoever Yahweh our Most High forbade us. So they didn't take what he had left to Ammon, to Moab, and to Esau. They didn't touch that. They only took everything else. They took everything else. And why? Because there were giants in those places, and they committed all these abominations, and they were children of Canaan, and they were going to get their land taken from them. Why is he going to destroy this earth and take over the whole world with the kingdom of Israel? Because the men of this land have committed all these abominations in the whole world. And Asatan has the beast, and the beast in the image to the beast, and their hatred of Yah and of his order and of his law. And he's going to have his chosen ones take over. And we're not going to need any weapons. We're not going to need any weapons. They're the children of Ham. Let's take a look at that. That's a good question, Don Hans. Let's take a look at that in the table of nations. The chapter shows us all the nations in Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10. That's a good question. Let's take a look at that. Genesis 10. Now, let's focus on Ham, because that's where all of these people that were in the land come from. Now, this is an important question too, because again, I want to stress, at that time, it was children of Ham that were occupying the land, right? Whose children occupy the land today? It was children of Ham, as Don Hines is asking. We're going to read that now, but it was children of Ham that occupied the land of Canaan. Whose children? That's right, Yafet's children occupy the land now. Okay, so Ham's children occupied it then. Yafet's children occupy it now. And as Ham's children were taken off for the abominations, Yafet's children are going to be taken off. And not just in that land, but Yafet's system is the entire system of Babylon. The great whore of Babylon comes from Rome. That is Yafet's child. Y'all catching me? Rome is from Yafet. Before Rome, there were the Greeks, Yafet. Okay, and so Yafet's children are running the earth now, and they're the opposition to the true children. Don't worry, the Most High got us, just like he had our fathers. He got us. But let's take a look at Ham's children, beginning at verse 6 of Genesis chapter 10, beginning at verse 6. The sons of Ham, Cush and Mizraim and Put and Canaan. Now, before we continue, whenever you see the word Egypt in the Old Testament, look up that word in the Hebrew and you will see the word Mizraim. Because the word Egypt was changed by Alexander the Great, the Greek, which is why you had the word Egypt in this Bible. It was, when you look up the original word, it's Mizraim, because that's where they came from. That's where that whole section of Africa came from, Mizraim. And Cush is Ethiopia. Okay, so let's take a look. When you look up Ethiopia in Hebrew, when you look up that word in your Strongs, you're going to see Cush. Cush and Mizraim, Put and Canaan. All of that is what we call today Africa. Okay, Canaan, the land of Canaan, was originally inhabited by the people we call today African. Wait, did it say Canaan there? Canaan is Ham's child, correct? So that whole land that they now consider so-called Middle East was also what we call Africa. You follow me? Therefore, we can conclude that the original promised land was Africa. The original tree of life was Africa. The original of Adam was Africa. And the New Jerusalem is going to be where? On Africa. Canaan, right? Canaan, right? But it's still good for us to go through this. Okay, so all of that whole plot of land that they cut the water, they made a canal through it to try to cut it off, but it's all part of the same tectonic plate that they now call Africa. Now, Africa is not mentioned in the Bible. Then it was called what? Cush, Ham, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. And by the way, the land of Canaan then would be African, and they would be black people. because even the children of Japhet acknowledge Hamites are black people. Okay, so let's continue. Verse 7. And the sons of Cush, Sheba, Havilah, Sabta, Ra'amah, Sabteka, and the sons of Ra'amah, Sheba and Dedan. And we heard of the queen of Sheba. We also heard of one of David's wives, Solomon's mother. What was her name? Bathsheba. Bathsheba. Bath means sister, sister of Sheba. That was the woman when he was walking across that roof and he caught a hold of her washing herself. He said, hey, get that sister to my room. Bathsheba, daughter of Sheba, or sister of Sheba. Daughter of Sheba, sister of Sheba. Bathsheba. Yes, Ethiopia is Cush. So when you look up the word Ethiopia, as I mentioned, when you look it up in the Strongs, you're going to see the word Cush. When you look up the word Egypt in the Strongs, you're going to see the word Mizraim. That's the original names of these places. Okay, let's continue. Verse 8. And Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh. So they were worshiping Nimrod. That's the man-made worship right there. They were worshiping Nimrod as a god. Okay. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, where you get Babylon. Erech, Akkad, Calneh in the land of Shinar. And out of that land went forth Ashur, where you get the Assyrians, and builded Nineveh and the city of Rehoboth and Calah. And Rezin between Nineveh and Calah, the same is a great city. And Mizraim begot Ludim and Anamim and Lahabim. Notice the beam, im theme. No pun intended, but you see the im theme that you saw with the giants in the land of Canaan? The im theme. Naphtuhim, Anamim, Lahabim, Pathrusim, and Casluim, out of whom came Philistine. So the original Philistines were black people. Not only that, if you were to look up Palestine in the Bible, look it up in the Hebrew. What does it say? Philistine. The land was a Philistine. They were Hamites. Now, the difference between the Philistines and the rest of the land of Canaan, as you can see here, the Philistines' father was Mizraim, whereas Canaan was the father of the land of the rest of the land of Canaan. But the Philistine, when they came to what's called they call later Palestine, that name is Philistine. All of it is black. Just saying. Let's continue. Verse 15. And Canaan begot Sidon. Sidon. These are names you're going to see as you read through the Bible about the history of our people in our land. You see all these names. Sidon, his firstborn, and Het, and the Jebusite. That's where he had Jerusalem. And Amorite, and Girgasite, and Hivite, and Archite, and Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Amathite. And afterwards were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And the border of Canaan was from Sidon as thou comest to Gerar unto Gaza, as thou goest to Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah and Zaboim, even unto Lasha. These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongue, in their countries, and in their nations. So the people that dwelt in the land that our fathers were taken, and on the way to that land were children of Canaan and children of Mizraim. The Philistines were the Mizraim. The rest of them were Canaan. They was all from Ham. Okay, so the Hamites controlled the land that our fathers were given. That was then. Today, Japhet controls the land that our fathers were given. Okay, and what Japhet has done is call his system, or should I say the Most High called his system, after the name of the system that Nimrod called it, Babylon. Nimrod called it Babylon. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Here you have a modern final form of Babel, only it wasn't with the Hamites, Now it's with Yafet. The whole religious, government, economic system is from Yafet now. And they control that land as well as the whole earth. Yep, it was the same Nineveh, same one. Because Ashur, remember, you see the mention of Ashur, and I told you it is the Assyrians. The Assyrians is interesting. They're not Hamites. He took the land, but that Assyrian came from Shem. Notice Shem's children in verse 21. Unto Shem also the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japhet the elder, even to him children born. And look at his children. The children of Shem, Elam. You'll see Elam in the Bible, especially in Isaiah. Ashur. That's where you get your Assyrians. Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. Now, these Assyrians dwelt with the Hamites. They were so closely aligned that in the Bible, they're almost interchangeable, Assyrian and Hamite, because it was the Assyrians that took the northern kingdom into captivity. It was the Assyrians. That's Ashur's children. But what happened is Nimrod's kingdom was part of that land also. Okay, Nimrod's kingdom was part of that land. So Nimrod took over that land. And that's why the Hamites and the Assyrians were so closely aligned. Though one was Sem and one was Ham. Okay. That's an interesting fact. Okay. Nineveh repented at the time of Jonah. But remember, we're dealing with thousands of years. Things change, right? Our fathers repented at some point under Josiah. They repented under Jehoshaphat. They repented under Hezekiah. They repented lots of times, right? But in the final analysis, we still got scattered. There you go. Yep. Jonah was sent to Nineveh and they repented. That's right. And they still here too, right? We're still here and they're still here. Praise the Most High. And all of us going to be brought back. The Most High said, he said, in fact, let's take a look at that. That's a good point. Let's take a look at that. Isaiah chapter 19. Look at Isaiah chapter 19. Watch this. Watch this. Isaiah chapter 19. Watch this. Isaiah chapter 19. Where should I start? I'm going to start at verse 19. Isaiah 19 from verse 19 down to verse 25. Watch this. Isaiah 19 from verse 19 to verse 25. Watch who's mentioned here and watch how it ends up. In that day shall there be an altar to Yahweh in the midst of the land of Egypt, and the pillar at the border thereof to the Yahweh. And it shall be for a sign and for a witness unto Yahweh of hosts in the land of Egypt. For they shall cry unto Yahweh because of the oppressors, and they shall send them a savior and a great one, and he shall deliver them. And Yahweh shall be known to Egypt, and the Egyptians shall know Yahweh in that day, and shall do sacrifice and oblation. Yea, they shall vow a vow unto Yahweh and perform it. And Yahweh shall smite Egypt, he shall smite and heal it, and they shall return even to Yahweh. And he shall be entreated of them, and shall heal them. In that day there shall be a highway out of Egypt to Assyria. There's a shore. And the Assyrian shall come unto Egypt, and Egypt into Assyria, and the Egyptians shall serve with the Assyrians. And in that day shall Israel be the third with Egypt and Assyria, even a blessing in the midst of the land, whom Yahweh of hosts shall bless, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. So, just like us, they'll be brought back. Praise the Most High. He never forgets, man. He just doesn't forget. We forget, but he doesn't. And his witness, he bears witness in the word. The Bible doesn't say that the Philistine is coming back. It doesn't say that. It says they'll be wiped off the earth as a race of people. And apparently they were, because you got other people there. So it doesn't say the Philistine, but it does say Egypt and Assyria, which is Mizraim and Asher. It does say that. And Nineveh, as you mentioned, is above, is within the Assyrians. Nineveh is among the Assyrians. And so he talks about them coming back. But no, not anything that was in Canaan. Anything as far as the land of Canaan, which included the Philistines. No, not them. Not them. Okay. Not in the Bible. And if somebody finds it, please let me know. But I haven't seen anything about Philistines being restored. I've seen Moabites, Ammonites, Edoms. All right. We've seen all that. We've seen Assyria, Mizraim, but not Canaan. He said, cursed be Canaan. Well, not all of Ham, because Canaan is Ham. Canaan is Ham's youngest son. We just read that, right? Canaan is Ham's youngest son. You had Mizraim. You had Cush was the firstborn. Mizraim put, what's the other one? There was another one. And then there's Canaan. Wait a minute, I got to read it now. I got to read it. It's Genesis chapter 10. There's the firstborn was Cush. And then there is Mizraim. And then there was Put. Let me read it here. Let's see. Cush. All right. Sons of Ham. Cush, Mizraim, Put. No, that's right. Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Canaan was the last son of Ham, the youngest. Okay. Okay. Luz is the child of Shem. Yeah, Luz was the child of Shem. That's a different one. But Put, which is now called Libya in North Africa, you have Put, you have Mizraim, and Cush. The only one that's not mentioned here is Canaan. He's cursed. Remember, cursed be Canaan. That's what Noah said. Cursed be Canaan. And also, what was the acts that Canaan's children were performing on that land? We read that in Leviticus 18. So no, they won't be brought back. And neither will the Philistine. Neither will the Philistine. They're not going to be brought back either. Okay, because they're all dwelling on the wrong land. Mm-hmm. No, sir. Yep. Is what it is, brethren. But the Bible tells us plainly, doesn't it? Doesn't leave nothing out. It tells us everything. Right? We don't need to guess. It tells us all that. Praise the Most High. Just keep reading your book, man. Read it. Read it for yourself. Bless the Most High who gave us this book for these days, the prophetic utterance that show us what happened and what's about to happen. Praise the Most High. May the Most High bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you and lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom.